Figured out my technical glitches. So anywho, I am going to go ahead and record this one tonight. Some people they have work schedules. Like I know Christopher couldn't be here. And so a solution I thought would be to record this. So it's not going to be on Instagram or anything like that, but just to be able to maybe send it out as an attachment in our monthly email or something like that. Just people had asked if they could ever get this information when we finished. So I feel like it's more embarrassing for me than it is for you guys, since I'll be trying to teach something here. But if it ever makes you uncomfortable, feel free to turn the video off or do the chat if you have to ask a question or something. But I'm happy to see awesome people. It's always nice to have new people on here. And I think Laura has a cat in the background, so that should be fun. I know Blanca's puppy should be bouncing around somewhere or sometime. 3 cats out there. Oh my. Well, like I said, there's generally a couple more people who do get on here. And so, but we'll go ahead and get started. Hey. Good to see ya. And just so you guys know, in case the information sounds redundant, there were so many people who wanted the information from this session that I am kind of doing the same slides again. But so normally I'll do 2 different ones, but this month there were so many questions on this topic. And even people who attended ended up like messaging me for the information again. So I decided it was worth staying here for a little bit longer. And it gives me time to resolve the technical issues of recording it. So if some of it sounds redundant, if you were here last time, feel free to zone out for a second. But, whenever you try to teach something, you never teach it the same twice. So it'll probably end up being new. So anywho, to go ahead and get us started, the plan for today is doing quick introductions because I really do think it's important for you guys to kind of meet each other. It's nice whenever we can have things in person, but in the age of COVID, we still have to form community, even if it's online. Go over some key terms. Some of them are really easy. Some of them are a bit tricky to pronounce. So we're going to practice that. Talk about populations over the season, the fountain of youth for the bees, testing and treating hives for mites, and then always upcoming events. So let's start with the fun stuff. And who are you? So if we can just do name, kind of how you're affiliated with us or how you've got to know us. And I always like to throw in a fun one. So like earliest memories of bees or honey. Obviously I'm Lauren. I am the Calm+Confidence. It'd be nice at some time to have a team, but as of now, it's me. And honestly, I just think growing up in the South in the summer, just being stung, like those are my earliest memories of playing barefoot outside and accidentally stepping on a flower that you shouldn't have stepped on. And there we go. So whoever wants to start us off, if you'll just do a quick introduction about you.
I'm Ash. I am with Farm Girl Meats. Well, that's who I work with. And we've all just become community, connecting with each other. And earliest memory of bees is being on my grandparents' farm, growing up and getting stung. And I remember lathering my leg with mustard to pull out the soreness, and my cousins would just be laughing at me because I'd be walking around with mustard on the back of my leg. So yeah.
Yeah, whoever wants to go next.
Okay, I can go. I'm Blanca Hernandez. I work for Corporate Extensions, and I'm here because the Chrome Garden, we have, I met Lauren through the hive that we have there. And like you said, the same thing. But I always felt really sad when the bees stung me because they die, and that was something for me that I couldn't resist, and I couldn't, it makes me sad. So that's what I'm trying to see, to help them and protect them from now on, and that's what I want to do, help them as much as I can.
Go for it, Laura.
Well, okay, I'm Laura, and Lauren moved in next door, so that's how I met her, and been so thankful. And we have now some bees. Well, actually, now we have a bunch of bees. As of today, even more bees. So it's really cool. And I mean, they were like all over the place today because we were doing some crazy stuff. And they were just fine. They were really chill, even though we were kind of mixing up 3 different hives. So I did not let Maggie, my dog, out during that time. I'm learning, but thanks a bunch. I'm excited to be here.
I'm Damara, and I have bees through Calm+Confidence, and I love it. My earliest memory of bees is probably similar to Lauren's. I was at daycare, riding the big wheel, got off in the white flowers, and stepped on a bee, got stung. Immediate fear of bees. As I got older, like, I'm not afraid, but it's a really, really cool thing, and I'm like in love with them, and yeah, it's really been incredible. So today's my birthday. I got some bee earrings, and I got a really cool bee phone case that you can't see because I'm on my phone. So it looks like the hive and everything. It's like it's like a realistic picture. It's really awesome. But anyway.
Leroy, you want to finish us off?
Sure. I'm just laying down. My name is Leroy. I don't have any bees yet. I'm very bee curious and here to learn as much as I can.
I think you just created a new hashtag for me. Be curious. Yeah, and so just like a couple little connections, it's just funny of who's on here. So Blanca, you and I were taking apart hives the other day. Laura received part of those hives today. And then Leroy was my spotter in doing all the transferring of things around. So Blanca knows what I'm talking about. Her and I were talking about the madness that this was going to be, and we did it. So fingers crossed. So we'll go ahead and get started, but feel free at any time to stop me or put in the chat. I love that Ash already wished Damara a happy birthday, and I love that you're already getting bee gifts. Like, get prepared. I feel like now that you've got hives, it'll be every holiday. People are going to love it. So, and Instagram famous right there. He's the one who had the bee crawling around on his eye the other day and posted that video. That was awesome. So they've made friends. So let's go ahead and practice this vocabulary. Even if you were here last time, I know you forgot some of these words, and so let's just try our best. So brood, we all pretty much know brood just means baby bees. So larva or pupa. Larva is when they are in that worm shape. A lot of times they start out as a little white C. They're eggs before they're larvae, and then they grow into pupa. And pupa is once they're capped, right? And then that's when they're going through their metamorphosis to come out as adult bees. Adult bees then are broken into 3 categories. We've got the drones that are the males, and they do hatch out quicker, the longest, 24 days. Queen bees are the quickest, even though they're the largest in the hive. They actually develop the quickest, and then workers are right there in the middle. And so workers are fertilized eggs. So they have both sets of chromosomes from their mom and their dad, but they haven't mated, right? Queens are also receiving double genetics. So some DNA from mom, some DNA from dad, but they have mated. And then drones only receive half of the DNA. That's where it's easy to tell if it's going to be a male or a female bee. And now we get to the tough words that camera on or camera off, I want to see you practicing. So we're going to practice pronouncing these next two words. Yeah, good try. You can turn your camera off if you want, but I want you actually saying these. So the first one is diutinous. 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 Okay. There we go. Good. Diutinous bees are the winter bees that will survive the whole winter. Most worker bees that are born in the spring and summer only last 6 to 8 weeks, but diutinous bees last all winter. Yeah, diutinous. Okay, next one, vitellogenin. I know, right? So think like vital, like you need like your vital organs, right? Vitellogenin, vitellogenin, vitellogenin. Cool. So, yeah. Questions? All right. So this is the substance that's actually fed to queen bees because queen bees can live for years. And so this is the substance that's fed to queen bees that keeps them alive so long. And that will also be fed to the diutinous bees over the winter. So it increases their lifespan. Any questions so far on vocabulary? We're going to talk more about diutinous and vitellogenin throughout this. But any initial questions?
Is the vitellogenin also called royal honey? I mean, royal jelly? Or
Royal jelly, I'm going to do a Google search while we're sitting here because that question got brought up last time and I feel sketchy because I don't think they're exactly the same, but gotta love the internet, man.
But you did say that it's like marketed in cosmetics or
It
whatever.
is. It is marketed. And so they will, okay, so they will eat the vitellogenin and synthesize it into royal jelly. So it's what they use to make it.
Okay.
Exactly. But yeah, but it commercially, like those are going to be used a lot of times synonymously. Any other questions before we go on?
Is it edible?
Nice. For us, yeah, like I would be curious about the long-term studies of it making us live longer. That would be fascinating. But it's not going to be poisonous or anything like that. I haven't seen anything where it's like can harm us. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's somebody out there that's tried to, it would be even harder to get than royal jelly, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody's tried to, because royal jelly is already so small of an amount. Even when you're buying cosmetics and stuff, they're just putting a dash of it in there because it's so hard to get. Vitellogenin is going to be even harder to source out in the hive. So let's go ahead and talk about the seasons. This could be pretty basic knowledge, but just a reminder that in the spring, we have a population that survived the winter. But then over the spring and summer, that population is going to grow as they start to lay larvae and pupa in the spring. As those hatch out and the other adult workers are still alive, that population booms. Then towards the fall, the population is going to start to decrease. And then over winter, it's at its lowest. It's really important that we make sure that population that is alive and dormant during the winter is still healthy. It's not a hibernation like we think of other species going into hibernation mode where they're just in there asleep, because they're awake the whole time. They're still keeping each other warm. They're still eating. They're still managing the temperature of the hive to make sure nobody's getting too hot and perishing or too cold and perishing. So there's a lot of activity still going on. It's not like how we all saw bears hibernating in the winter. But it is important that since this population is so small, that we make sure that they're really healthy bees. So just to kind of look at what types of bees are alive, This darker color, and good to see you, Kurt. I saw you hopped on here as well. Don't wreck, just listen. The darker color are drones. So there's the highest amount of drones in the spring because that's going to be mating season. There's still several drones in a hive in the summer because there are some late swarms, or sometimes a hive needs to requeen and they need to make sure that those drones are still present. And that can happen even into the fall. There was a hive about 2-3 weeks ago that made new queens. And so they still had some drones around the city to mate with. This larger graph, the taller one, is for our worker population. So just like we talked about, they're high in the spring, peak, and then dwindle for the winter. And then this smallest portion of the graph are queens. Obviously, every hive can only have one queen, but that doesn't mean that that's all that's being produced. So in the spring, there can be up to 10 to 12 queens being produced at once whenever there's going to be a swarm. And then that cannot even happen through the fall, but you can see that in the winter, there's still one queen, but there are no drones left in the winter. They remove all of the males from the hive. These lists to the side are pretty self-explanatory, but in the spring, obviously there's a lot of flowers, aka nutritious sugar-packed nectar. So they're going to be collecting pollen and making honey, not only to survive now and to feed those eggs and larvae that are growing, but they're also, honeybees are adapted to store it away for winter. Other bees like mason bees or bumblebees, other kinds of pollinators, still will make honey a lot of times because they're collecting nectar, but it's not nearly on the scale. Even a bumblebee hive, even with hundreds of bumblebees, will only have about a tablespoon of honey. So it's honeybees that are specialized to really pack that nectar away and keep it for later, aka also keep it for humans, which are going to harvest it. Spring and summer, the hive is still growing. They're still producing honey, but not as much, but they still have to keep all those larvae and pupa alive. So they have a lot of bees, so they are still collecting nectar and making honey, but they're also having to use some of that to continue the growth of the hive. In the fall, bee flowers start to dry up, and that's actually what signals the queen to start making diutinous bees. The fact that they're not getting as much pollen, but they're still bringing in some nectar, it gives a shift between their sugar and their proteins. So whereas through the spring, they're getting a lot of protein in the pollen as well as sugar, it's more balanced. Now that pollen drops. And so since they're living on mainly nectar this time of year, that's what triggers the queen to start making diutinous bees. So it's not temperature, it's not like length of day or anything like that. It's the ratio of how much pollen versus nectar is being produced by plants. Which brings us to the tough part, and we're going to stop after this for questions, so hold on to them. So this slide asks us to bring both vocabulary words. We got diutinous bees, so our winter bees, and vitellogenin. So the vitellogenin, like we talked about, is the fountain of youth for these bees. But what's interesting is that these winter bees, that from being laid as an egg all the way through growing up, larva and pupa stages, they're being fed only nectar. So instead of getting a lot more pollen like their earlier siblings got through the spring and the summer, these fall bees are being fed mainly nectar. And so they are born with these big, fluffy, white fat cells. So on the outside, the winter bees, the diutinous bees, and the normal worker bees look exactly the same. But if we were to actually dissect them, they're filled with this white, fluffy fat cells. All right, those fat cells are what produce the vitellogenin. So when we talk about royal jelly, right, all bees, all worker bees in the hive can produce royal jelly. But in this season, they're making more vitellogenin, so they can actually produce more royal jelly. So they're working together. Because they have so much more vitellogenin, they can live up to 6 months compared to summer bees that only live 6 to 8 weeks. Part of that is because they're not foraging. So these winter bees rarely leave the hive. So they're not exerting a lot of that energy flying all around. They're generally only leaving the hive to use the bathroom because bees are still clean. They don't like to do that in the hive unless they're absolutely too cold and can't leave. But they're only surviving on the honey and the warmth all winter. And what's interesting is that even after they've eaten up all of the honey, right? So these winter bees, they've gone through and they've consumed all of the honey. They'll still live on even longer because they have all these fat cells filled up inside of them. So that vitellogenin is keeping them alive. It's allowing them to feed the queen, and it also is allowing them to have enough energy and enough nutrients to create those spring bees. Because think about it, in the spring, when they start producing eggs and larvae, there's not a lot of flowers out yet. So they start doing that about in February. And so they're literally using just their internal energy that they have stored up, just like us, right? If we put on a little bit of fluff, right? We've got a little bit longer that we could survive without food. It's the same with the bees. They're filled with all these fat cells. So therefore, even in the spring, if there's no food left, they can still feed their younger brothers and sisters because they have the food stored up within them. And that's where we'll stop with some questions, because I know it's a lot. So what you guys got so far? Teaching it the second time. Did I do it? I'm more clear, or people got their questions answered last time?
So vitellogenin basically supplements what the seasons couldn't give. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's like, it's the stored up result of all the seasons, right? If they ran out of, let's say they ran out of pollen and honey in November, right? They didn't have enough then. There's no way the vitellogenin and coming out of their fat cells is going to survive for that 4 months, 4 months,
Okay.
until they're ready to make those spring bees. And so that's where I have seen hives still starve to death, right? If we take too much honey this time of year and don't give them enough, but if it gets to be, let's say, January, and they've depleted their stock, they still have enough time and energy to be able to feed those young. Obviously, we want these bees to survive, like every single one of them, right? But as long as we have a large portion of them survive, then the hive will go on. But when you think about it, even in February, it's still pretty cold, right? So they need the heat from each other. So it's really important this time of year that we're making sure they have enough food so they can last until at least January, February. But they also need enough bees, because even if they have enough food, if they don't have a big enough colony to group and cluster and keep each other warm, you can have all the food in the world, but you don't have enough body heat to keep you alive.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem, Bob.
So there's no active foraging? They're just surviving on the...
Mm-hmm. The only thing we have to watch out for is they will start to fly if the temperature is over 55 degrees a lot of times. And sometimes I do see bees fly out even in the snow, but that's to use the bathroom, right? They're not going out and flying miles and trying to find things because they know their body heat is going to get absorbed in the environment quickly. So they're just going to the bathroom, getting back in the hive. But if it's 55 degrees, 50, 55 and higher, they will leave and go start to forage. And that's where we have to watch, because if we have a really light winter, and they do that a lot, they're going to go through their honey a lot faster than if we have a cold winter and they just stay put all winter. Then they're not going to burn up that energy. They're not going to go through their food as quickly. So through the winter, we'll actually walk around to the hives and lift them. And so that way we don't want to open it, right? Because it's going to like lose a lot of heat. But we'll lift them to see how much honey they still have in it. And if we don't think they have enough honey, then we can put a feeder on, and then they'll still be able to get food to last until there are plants to forage from. So we got to watch. Okay. If questions pop up, feel free to bring them. But I am, as long as I don't mess this up, going to play a quick video about mite testing, and then we'll finish up by just talking about treating bees. So, might take me a second to work out the glitch of getting the presentation to go over there. Okie doke. All right, so I can kind of summarize that a little bit, but I think everyone here has not done a sugar shake test. Last time there were a couple people who had done it, but basically we want to see how many mites are on the bees, which are these little tick-like things. And Kurt, if you were able to see it, great, but if not, you're basically covering the bees in powdered sugar, giving them a few minutes to actively clean themselves off with them getting the powdered sugar on them. They're going to want to clean that powdered sugar off. And then whenever you pour out, so you put a lid on top of it with a screen, and when you shake and pour out the sugar, you're able to see how many mites were on the bees. I know today when Leroy and I were working on Laura's hive, I think it was you, Leroy, who like said, hey, there's something red on that bee. It was either you or James. And that was a mite that was right there. And so with all the confusion and all the craziness at Laura's hive, we weren't going to deal with that today. But in the next month, we'll actually do what this showed and take bees out, get them in the jar, shaky, shaky, shaky. And Ash, you did do this with me, right? Yeah. So Ash, when we did it, did we get some mites? Or was there no mites on the bees?
We found what looked like could have been one, but that's it.
That's what I thought. Yeah. And like the video said, if you're using about a half a cup of bees, you're looking for 3 being the magic number. Another way you can do this is a drop test where you put like a political sign, like one of those little boards underneath the hive, and you put Crisco or something sticky on it, and you leave it in there for 24 hours. And then you pull it out from under the hive. And if that has 3 or more, then you also give them a treatment. So the treatment we're using for mites this year is powdered sugar themselves. So we're actually taking powdered sugar and just putting it on every level of the hive. And we do that every week for 3 weeks. Kurt, you might be more familiar with like the pads or the treatment sticks. Can you tell us real quick what you've done? Because I think you did a mite treatment. Oh, I think your mic's muted. If you're able, if you're driving or something, don't put yourself in danger. Okay.
There we go. Is that better? Okay, so I did buy strips. I haven't put them in yet. I've been focusing on killing a hornet's nest and was finally successful over the weekend. And so these strips I got, you're only supposed to put one every 5 frames. So it'd be like 2 per box, I guess, for mine. Full amount. That's about as much as I know about it. I haven't.
And so there's yeah, and there's all kinds. I think I sent you guys the little website where you could go through and kind of find one that worked, or maybe you just asked the one in Lakewood what to do, Robin's Honey Farm. Yeah, and so there's pads you can use. There's little strips like he's talking about that go into the hive. We went to a beekeeping conference this past weekend. Blanca went with me, and they talked about just that using those chemical treatments, especially on a commercial level, it builds up a lot of resistance, and there's just a lot of impact on the hives. And so I don't blame you at all, Kurt, and I've done it forever and ever too. This is my first year. We're actually trying, if we do have mites, we're going in and for each level of the hive, so if there's 3 boxes, we're opening it up and sifting powdered sugar all over the bees on every box. And we have to do that every week for 3 weeks. And the idea is just like the test, the act of them cleaning themselves off is going to get rid and dislodge those mites from their body. And once the mites are detached, they just fall out of the hive. The only way a bee gets a mite is they have it before they're born. They get it while they're in that larva and pupa stage. So if we can clean off the mites of all the adult bees for 3 weeks straight, then those new brood, because it takes about 3 weeks for the new brood to hatch, should be a much reduced level, or they should be completely free of mites. So we're trying it, but we'll see by next year. I'll try to have some data on if it worked or not. But the main thing, what Kurt's doing and what we're trying to do is just make sure that these diutinous bees are free of mites. Because if they have a mite on them, just like in this picture, the mite actually consumes the vitellogenin. So when it attaches right here, it's actually eating those fat cells. And so obviously, if a hive has a huge load of mites, those winter bees are really at risk. All right. Want to open it up to Q&A. These are the Mount St. Mary's girls. I love they've gotten to a point where they can do it on their own, where I sit there and just kind of support them, but that's them leading it by themselves. And we have some upcoming events. But questions, comments? Changes throughout the year to kind of think about populations, winter bees, and mites.
So for supplementing during the winter, it's just the same kind of upside down jar with sugar water in it or whatever it is, the solution.
And using a 2-to-1, so double the sugar, half the water. Okay. In the spring, you can do 1-to-1 because it mimics that really liquidy nectar in the spring. But right now, because everything's dried up, it should be 2-to-1. And that's even for Washington too. Okay. That's not just down here in the South.
All right.
Feel free to chime in, but we are going to do a community potluck this Friday. A lot of you guys have been to Rose City. And Kurt, Rose City is just a location. It's kind of my hub now for all the equipment. And we do a lot of gardening. We do chicken stuff there and all kinds of stuff. But we're doing a potluck for just people who've worked with us throughout the spring and summer. And we're going to do a lot of renovations over the winter. And we're wanting to pick you guys' brains. So we've got some drawn up sketches of what we're thinking, but we'd like to get people's feedback. So Friday night, 5 to 7, we're going to grill and all that. And then Whitewater Tavern, they loved how we did the mead fest for Father's Day. They loved our mead class and follow us online. And so they wanted to host an event for us. So it'll be Jeremiah joining us. And you same thing, you get to make a batch, but we're also doing like a pro level this time of people who want to make even a bigger, like a different batch. So yeah.
So where are these again?
These are in Little Rock. So fly on down, Kurt. Kurt's in Washington. Yeah,
I've been to Little
come
Rock.
visit Little Rock for the weekend and, enjoy some grilling, enjoy some
Yeah.
mead.
Sounds like
But
fun.
eventually we might get some more things going in Washington. I've got
Yeah.
some hopes, but we'll see.
What is mead?
Mead is like wine or beer made from honey.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's got some kick to it. It's like, I'd say in the wine category or even a little stronger. You don't drink a full glass of mead and walk away from the conversation. You sip on it.
Think I'll be there.
Exactly. And so it has to ferment for a month before it actually becomes alcoholic. So that's how we get away without having to have a liquor license, is that we're selling the kits and we're showing you like you get to make it all there, but then you take it home and then in a month you enjoy yourself. So it'll be good for the holidays, good gifts and things like that.
Cool. And how much are the tickets for the Mead Fest?
We did 30 this time because we are going to have some other stuff, and I'm going to have some free tickets online, but $30, and it includes everything from like the airlock that goes on it, the jug, the honey, all the ingredients. You get to mix whatever kind you want. We have a lot of different options. And so $30 gets you all the materials, walk away and enjoy some big old bottles of mead.
How much honey do you need per gallon?
For a gallon, we use 3 pounds of honey.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot. That's why our
Yeah.
tickets, it's our honey we use.
From honey.
I
I
don't
know.
want to have to use other people's, but
That's what I thought. That's why I'm a little reluctant to make mead, because we enjoy it otherwise so much,
exactly. Yeah, you can use a little bit less and still get the job done, but generally about 3 pounds for a gallon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. I'm not going anywhere. If anybody has questions, keep them coming.
Is there a sign-up sheet like of things to bring to the thing on Friday?
So part of this is finding out what kind of organizational systems we need to have in place, and that's not one of them. I always make sure that the burgers and the hot dogs are covered, and we usually have a veggie burger and a veggie hot dog covered. Everything else is a free-for-all. So whatever you want to bring, we'll have condiments and buns, and then it's whatever people show up with.
Okay.
Yeah, bring something edible. It'll be loved by all. And all ages welcome, so bring the kiddos. Cool. Well, team, like I said, holler at me if there's any questions that pop up. I'm hoping we will finish up mite testing. We've done about a quarter of the hive this past month, so we'll keep chugging along on that. Blanca's hive, I'm just going to add in. Blanca's hive stings me every time, and so we decided we're just going to treat it without shaking the bees. Because it's only me too. Blanca is just out there like a pro, no problems. And so we decided instead of shaking them and doing all that and ticking them off, we're just going to treat them. So I think we're done, right? You told me we were over. So we've done it 3 times.
Yes, we're done.
Thank you for keeping me in line. My notes were off. Okay.
So did mites fall out?
Say that again.
Did you see many mites fall out on the one you've done?
We've tested several, like Blanca's friend Sonia, who also went to the conference with us. When I tested her hive, we got 11. And yeah, so it was a lot. And so she's been doing the sugar every week. But we haven't done a test at the end yet. We should do that. to see the impact of how well it worked.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the other hive, there's another hive that I need to test, but we're just now getting started. They were a hive that just made a new queen. They did a fall requeening, and I didn't want to cause any issues with that new queen hatching out and maybe having trouble with the sugar. So we decided to wait until she had mated and started laying eggs. And so now that she has, we're going to start the treatment this week. Yeah.
Lauren, like, I just want to tell you, I so appreciate you. Like, I appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate the miles that you go for us. I love the whole Rose City thing. Like, I love the whole thing. And I appreciate your time and your effort and your energy and your willingness to help in everything. You're incredible.
Oh, you guys are sweet. It's been so fun. Like, I mean, to only have been living here like a year and a half, it's just so great to just get to meet so many different people from all different areas. And people ask me all the time, like, don't you just want to come run my bees and you can like stay in one field and just do like 100 hives? I'm like, heck no. Like, that's not why I like this. I like this of driving around and talking to new people every day. And so I'm just appreciative that you guys have been along for the ride and have had enough faith in me to be like, okay, we're doing this. And so, and things like this too, like if you guys have ideas of things that would be helpful for you, even just hosting this video call and then recording it is all because of people have requested it. So you guys just let me know what would be helpful to help you learn on this journey. And we're going to turn everybody into pro beekeepers in the next year or two.
So, like, as we become pro beekeepers, what are, like, just, you know, over the next couple of years, because I know that I've just gotten started, but what are things that I need to be looking out for? Or so, like, I know you keep mentioning these political signs. I mean, I do have some friends who maybe have tried to run for office who didn't get very far, so they have these old signs that are burning their souls. And so, like, what are things that you need, or what are things that I need to be on the lookout for, like, as I go junking or garage sailing, or, you know, just need to spend money on eBay for some reason?
I think that needs to be next month's video call.
Okay.
Mara, I think you just did it, because there was another guy I was talking to today that he's trying to really grow it. Like, we talked about being reasonable and what growing his apiary means. But I think seeing the equipment and seeing the time in the spring, I think Laura and maybe Leroy, you guys came to, like, well, definitely Leroy, but you guys came to work days where we were like building the frames and putting in the wax. And I mean, we can work for a while on building one box of those. And so in the spring, tomorrow, we will have work days where you can come in and learn those skills. Just to kind of see, because yeah, we want you, you know, in the next 2 years, we want you to know what you're doing enough to where if you need to clean out some frames and put some fresh ones in there, you know how to do that. And same thing with equipment.
But are there things that like, as I scavenge around, I use scavenge loose, like that Calm and Confident needs, or things that, like, if I come across, like, I should, like, do you need political signs? Do you need, and I'm not saying that like I mean, I don't have tallies of rights and wrongs or debts or anything like that. But if I give something to you, I mean, like, it's for the use of everybody. But kind of like that Rose City place where we all just kind of work together. But things that you need, like, or that you're looking for, or anything.
I'll think on it. The political signs are a thing that a lot of people have. I don't have a lot of those. So they have them at just like a Lowe's, which is like the white, like perforated board. And if I go and buy one of those, I can make 20 mite boards out of one, and they don't cost anything. And so, in fact, when I was teaching this, Kurt's son, Hayden, was in one of my beekeeping classes back in Washington, and I had the kids all do it, right? I like, well, here's a hive. It needs to fit in the hive. Make me all these boards. And then they had to sit there and do the math and do all the calculations to what would be the most efficient way to do it. And so I've got tons of them. And I think it, to me, what's important is to expose to you guys the different methods of doing these things so you can pick your style. Like, if you don't want to shake up bees with powdered sugar, I get it, believe me. you can put that thing underneath it. The only thing, and that's what I used to do with Kurt's bees, but the only problem for me is you have to leave that board for 24 hours and then come back in 24 hours to look at the mites. And with us having hives all the way from, you know, Cabot to Mablevale, I can't circle back now every time and come back in 24 hours.
Oh, come on, Lauren.
No, not doing that. So the sugar method, we can know the results right away, decide if we're starting a treatment or not, and then walk away with a plan. And so that's just where I've had to become more efficient. You can also do the sugar shake test with alcohol. And like Blanca, we heard that at the conference. Blanca, why do you not like that idea of using alcohol?
I don't want to kill them, and that's a problem. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. But they
I'm not either.
more, you know, you have more result, you know, like, you know, more than with the sugar powder. But I think the sugar is enough.
Yeah, so the alcohol test kills them. It is more precise. It will tell you like exactly how many mites because they all are removed from the bees. But we get a good enough readout. Like if you get 4 or 12, obviously treat. If you get none or 1, we don't treat. So it's pretty clear cut. Okay. But I'll think about that, Damara, about just like little trinkets. The only thing that comes to my mind is I go through so many mason jars. And I know somebody recently found like a Craigslist of like a free box of jars. And so I'm going to go through those next week and see what's salvageable. And then we're going to recycle the rest. But I'll be thinking about other little niche items that would be helpful.
Yeah, or just things that like we as keepers, so to speak, like need to collect so that way whenever we become self-sufficient, we're in the best place we can be to care for these guys because you know, like even when I came the other day and we tried on all the veils, like I so love that one style, and so you know I've been kind of looking like because I like that one. I don't want to wear the bikini top. I'm a winter bee. I don't need no bikini top.
I hear you. Yeah, no, and I do want to do that. And that might actually be a good reason to talk about this coming up to the holidays, because I think people want to get people gifts that are meaningful, and to be able to ask, like, I want a carrying kit for my tools, or I want a new smoker. Like those are cool gifts that if a family member knows, like, I mean, I love me some bee earrings, but I don't know how many bee earrings I need in life. Like eventually it'd be nice if somebody got me something else. But keep the earrings coming, people. Keep them coming. It's all right. But yeah, but I think you bring up good points, and I can work on that too.
Right. Cool. And I mean, like, I'm even thinking, especially as spring rolls around, like things I could plant in my yard or in my garden. And I know that they need like large amounts of something, but things that are a good pollen source for them, and just ways that I can be, you know, more ready for spring, and things that I can do to prepare to make it good yield for all of us.
Yeah.
So
those early blooming and late blooming species are really important. So having a list of what those are.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hop off here and holler with questions. Holler if you want to ride along. It's always nice to have people go out and see different hives because they're all different. They're just like people. We all have different needs and different strengths. So
except for it stings you, like I don't want to go there.
All right. Well, Kurt,
they good. Anyway, you know, if they sting just for some reason it's just Laura. So you can come to mine.
I don't know what it is. It's like usually the bees love me, and people are always like, "Oh my gosh, they sting me all the time," but they're not stinging you. But not Blanca's. I don't know what it is. But, all right.
So, have a good rest of your birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. Hey, are all of you guys coming to Rose City except for the Washington guy?
I'm gonna try to be there.
Hey, I made those watering barrels last weekend. Actually, I didn't make anything. That 9-year-old kid with the bee in his glasses, he made them, and that was pretty awesome. No, you're 10. Sorry, I don't even know the age of my kids anymore. But I'm the third one rolls around. You're like, he's still alive. It's good.
Agree.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks a lot, Lauren.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Bye, Leroy.